Have you ever given an AI this huge, complicated task only to get back, well, complete nonsense? Yeah, you're definitely not alone. Today, we're going to talk about a technique that fixes that problem. It's called prompt chaining, and it's a super simple idea with some really powerful results. Let's dive in.
Okay, so picture this. You've got a big project for an AI. Maybe you wanted to write a whole market analysis, with charts, forecasts, the whole deal, all based on a big chunk of raw data. Our first instinct is usually to just cram all of that into one single giant prompt. So we hit send, we wait, and we cross our fingers. But what's really going on in the background? What happens when a task we give an AI is just too big for it to handle in one go?
Well, it's probably not a huge surprise, but just like us, the AI gets overwhelmed. It gets confused by all the different instructions, it might miss a key step, or even worse, just start making stuff up. Or sometimes it just freezes and gives you nothing useful at all. Basically, by trying to do everything at once, it fails to do anything well.
So how do we get around this? Well, we have to change how we think. We need to stop seeing it as one giant job and start seeing it more like an assembly line. And that is the whole idea behind prompt chaining. So prompt chaining is just what it sounds like. You break a big task into a chain of smaller connected prompts. The assembly line metaphor is honestly perfect here, right? You wouldn't have one single worker build an entire car from scratch. You have specialists. One person installs the engine, the next does the chassis, another the wheels. Each step is focused, it's simple, and it builds on the work that came just before it.
Okay, so this AI assembly line sounds pretty neat in theory, but how does it actually work in practice? It's a really logical, step-by-step process where the output from one prompt becomes the input for the very next one. So here's how it plays out. Your first prompt is like station 1 on the line. Its only job is to take a bunch of messy data and just clean it up. That's it. Then that nice clean data gets passed to station 2, which is a second prompt that summarizes it. Then that summary goes to a third prompt, which turns it into a bulleted list for a presentation. You see? Each step is small and totally manageable, building on the last until you get exactly what you wanted.
But here's the real magic, the hidden superpower of prompt chaining. You get built-in quality control. Because the process is broken down, you can check the work at each and every stage. If that first prompt messes up cleaning the data, you catch it right there, before it goes on to ruin the summary and the final report. This stops a tiny little mistake at the beginning from turning into a total disaster at the end.
Okay, this all sounds great, but what are people actually doing with these AI assembly lines? Let's look at a few practical, real-world examples.
The uses are, pretty much endless. For creating content, you can chain prompts to first brainstorm ideas, then create an outline, then write a draft, and finally have another prompt edit it for tone. For data, it's amazing. You can take a messy wall of text and turn it into a perfectly structured table. You can even generate computer code, with one prompt defining the goal, the next writing the code, and a third one writing the tests to make sure it works. It's all about breaking down those multi-step jobs.
Of course, no technique is perfect. Even the best-run assembly lines can have problems, and prompt chaining has a couple of big ones you really need to look out for. The first one is called error propagation. This happens if you don't catch a mistake early on. That one little mistake at station 1 will get passed down the line, and every step after that will build on that same error, probably making it worse. The second big one is something called context explosion. Imagine asking the final worker on the line to remember every single thing every other worker did before them. It's just too much information. For an AI, this means the prompt gets bloated with all the history from the previous steps, which can actually confuse it and make it lose track of its current job.
So, when you weigh the pros and the cons, what's the really important thing to remember here? What does this method give you at the end of the day?
When it comes right down to it, prompt chaining does one thing incredibly well. It brings order to chaos. It puts you back in control of the AI's process. You get to guide it step by step to make sure the final result is exactly what you had in mind. You're not just a person asking for something anymore. You're more like the project manager. And that leaves us with a pretty interesting thought for the future. As AI gets more and more powerful and the tasks we give it get bigger and more ambitious, maybe our role in all of this is going to change. Maybe the most important skill won't be writing one single perfect prompt, but designing the smartest, most efficient assembly line. Are we all going to become managers of our own little AI factories? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.